Imagine a scenario where you are walking into a dimly lit room. You work further and notice that 5 naked women are staring at you with piercing eyes. Their bodies are distorted, angular, and grotesque. Their faces are masked, either by primitive carvings or by geometric shapes. They seem to challenge you. You feel uneasy, shocked, and yet intrigued. Well, you're looking at one of the most revolutionary paintings in the history of art, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, by none other than Pablo Picasso himself. In today's video, we're going to tell you all about it and how it caused a stir in the world of art. So, without further ado, let's get right to it. Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, which means the Young Ladies of Avignon, was painted by Pablo Picasso in 1907, when he was only 25 years old. As a new century began, Picasso was ready to leave behind his blue period and transform Western art with this single painting. He was not alone in his artistic experiments though, as others were also breaking away from old conventions and embracing modernism. Schoenberg wrote his Erwartung in 1909. Stravinsky composed The Rite of Spring in 1910, and Picasso set a journey to create something new too. As a result, this painting was brought into existence. It depicts 5 prostitutes from a brothel on a street in Barcelona, Spain, where Picasso used to visit frequently during his youth. He was attracted by the atmosphere of vice and decadence, as well as by the diversity of women from different origins and backgrounds. There, he also witnessed the harsh realities of poverty, disease, and violence that plagued the brothel and its inhabitants. Now let's talk about the painting. Les Demoiselles d'Avignon is huge, measuring 8 feet by 7 feet 8 inches, and it took Picasso several months to complete it. He made hundreds of sketches and studies before settling on the final composition. The title of the painting refers to a street in Barcelona, Carrer d'Avignon, which was known for its many brothels. The 5 figures, the women of Avignon, depict prostitutes of this red light district in Barcelona boldly staring back at the viewer from the painting. Picasso painted each of the figures quite differently. The woman on the top right who is opening the curtain has a lot of paint on her. Her head is made of sharp shapes and is most of Cubist one of the group. The curtain seems as if it was part of her body. The head of the woman who is bending down at the bottom right changed at least twice from the Spanish figure to what it is now. She looks like she was drawn from 2 angles at the same time, making her look twisted and confusing. The woman above her has somewhat of a masculine look with a dark face and a flat chest. The whole painting seems to be flat and doesn't seem to have any perspective to it. For this painting, Picasso looked at various sources to spark his creativity. He was particularly inspired by the art of Africa, which had a significant impact on his style. He saw it in several museums and admired its expressive power and formal inventiveness. He borrowed elements from African masks and sculptures to create the faces of the 2 women on the right of the painting. He also used sharp angles and flat planes to suggest volume and depth rather than shading or perspective. In addition to that, as he was born in Spain, Picasso felt a connection to his cultural roots. He was inspired by Liberian art, the ancient sculptures from his native peninsula, which he saw in the Louvre Museum. He incorporated features from Liberian art into the faces of the 2 women on the left of the painting. Furthermore, drawing inspiration from Egyptian art, which he saw in books and magazines, he added another layer or edge to his creative work. He was intrigued by its stylish representation of the human figure and its uses of symbols and hieroglyphics. He applied some aspects of Egyptian art to the face of the woman in the center of the painting. Picasso also used curving lines and organic forms to contrast the rigid geometry of the other figures and a triangular shape to create a sense of stability and harmony in the composition. That's not all though. Picasso was greatly indebted to Paul Cézanne and Paul Gauguin, 2 of his artistic predecessors who challenged the conventions of Western painting. Cézanne was a French painter who experimented with color, form, and space. He simplified objects into geometric shapes and arranged them into dynamic compositions. He also created a sense of depth by using warm colors for objects that are close and cool colors for objects that are far away. Picasso learned from Cézanne's approach and applied it to his own painting. This painting is still a source of intrigue for a lot of people because back in the day, it was a radical departure from the traditional norms of Western art. It broke the rules of perspective, proportion, anatomy, and beauty and used different geometric shapes and multiple viewpoints to represent reality in a new way. It also challenged the conventions of representation, especially of women. Instead of idolizing or eroticizing them, Picasso portrayed them as powerful, aggressive, and independent. This is the very reason that after finishing his painting, he kept it inside his studio for a very long time. He only showed it to a few friends, artists, dealers, and collectors. This was done by him as a preventative measure, as the painting was not something everybody was used to seeing. The people at the time were not okay with the fact that it seemingly conveyed a powerful and disturbing message about sex, death, and violence, and wanted it to be censored or banned. Needless to say, the painting was considered immoral when it was first shown in 1916 at the Salon d'Été in July of 1916, in an exhibition arranged by the poet André Salmon. Salmon changed the name of the painting from Le Bordel Philosophique, which he had given it in 1912, to Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, a less provocative title than the one Picasso had originally chosen, which was Le Bordel d'Avignon, translating to the brothel of Avignon. One of the reasons why the painting was so shocking was that it revealed Picasso's fear and fascination with sex and death. The painting was not only about prostitution, but also about syphilis, a deadly disease that was widespread at the time. Picasso himself had contracted syphilis from one of his lovers and feared its consequences. The painting is also considered to be about violence and mutilation, as some critics have suggested that Picasso was influenced by newspaper reports of a serial killer who dismembered his victims in Paris. Picasso himself admitted that he wanted to create a disturbing effect with his painting by saying, "I paint the objects as I think them, not as I see them. I paint objects as I know them, not as I see them. It isn't up to the painter to define the symbols. The public who look at the picture must interpret the symbols as they understand them." It was only in the early 1920s when the painting became widely known and appreciated after André Breton published an article about it, praising its originality and boldness. While some of his friends were troubled by Picasso's new artwork, other such painters, Ardengo Soffici, were pretty enthusiastic about it and gave him their full support. One of the many reasons that this painting was such a huge impact in the world of art is it served as a key that opened up new possibilities for artistic expression and experimentation. Picasso's painting inspired other artists to explore new ways of depicting reality and challenging the viewer. Together with his friend and collaborator, Georges Braque, Picasso developed Cubism into a more complex and abstract style, which influenced other movements such as Futurism, Constructivism, and Dada. Not only that, but his paintings also paved the way for Surrealism, Expressionism, and abstract art, which is very popular in today's day and seeks to express the inner world and the subconscious of the artist as well as the viewer. Click on any of the two videos on the screen right now for more content.